Hello, everybody. Welcome to another episode of Count Your Words. Today, we are talking about evolution of culture, history of humans, evolution of knowledge, and how things have been around different time periods, around different parts of the world. So, I'm going to be sharing a couple of my thoughts, facts, and insights or things I've gained. It's not going to be very nerdy thing. It is just some fun facts and some correlations from different times of the period. My knowledge or insights I gained from reading couple of books and different podcasts and videos of YouTube. So mostly I would recommend the book Homo Sapiens to you. It's by Yuval Noah Harari. Amazing person, amazing book. The first part is Homo Sapiens, the second part is Homo Deus,
And the third one is 21 Lessons for 21st Century.
So, do you know why did humans evolve so far and so fast and become so dominant, even over the other large and stronger species compared to mammoths or elephants? They are stronger than us. Cheetahs are faster than us. Even then, why have we evolved more quickly and spread out more widely as compared to them? So the the fact is, animals take a long time to evolve and adapt to their environment. So, a famous example is giraffe. For it to grow its neck to reach the higher branches of trees. For polar bears to grow a thick coat of fur to survive the cold. And different animals having different kind of tooth and claws and different adaptivity skills. There are kangaroos with their sacks and the other marsupials. So there are some wonderful creatures in Madagascar as well. There is one creature which has a huge middle finger. It taps the wood and scoops out insects from the tree. It's only found in Madagascar. So the fact is, animals take a lot of time to adapt and evolve. But what humans do is they don't evolve themselves. They change the environment for their needs. They use the environment for their own cause. So if you're fully feeling cold, traveling to other places, why why wait till you grow a fur? Why just not use a coat of the animal which you have just hunted down? So so in that ways, carrying a sack for food, stitching together. If you don't have claws or things to tear open the fur or break the bones, use stone tools, sharp them up, use them as you want. So these kind of things have pushed human forward. Another fact is, you know, we are the only species amongst others who can run so fast for such a long distance. So imagine any other animal running for 20 miles or for 44, 50 kilometers in that sort of speed. So that's why humans are able to travel long distances and cover spread out throughout the world. They started out, and you know another fun fact, why we don't have claws or what is the benefit of our nail? Well, it's very important because it's because of nail we are able to hold on to things, grab things. If the nail wasn't there, there wouldn't be any hard surface behind it to hold on to things. So if animals had if we had claws like animals, it would hurt ourselves if we tried to fold fist like we do. So humans started out in Africa, they spread out through Asia, then to the land bridge of eastern Russia and western Alaska. There was a land bridge many years ago. Then from there they went into Americas, then North America continent, then South America, and in the meanwhile they went south from the Indonesian continent to Australia. So another cool fact is this I had read in book called Outliers. So where does the sense of pride come from? You have heard or read about in movies or seen a lot of family disputes and family battles happening, and the sense of pride and dying for honor and that sort of thinking. So what happens is the regions or societies which grew cattle, which were cattle herders, they in them as compared to people who farm. So in them, for somebody else to kill a cow or grab, they were very protective of the living animals and people in the family. It was like as if losing a part of the family. The whole livelihood and the life depended on those animals. So if somebody else killed an animal, they had to take the revenge and get from them, get back from them. On the other hand, which societies were into agriculture, and they required help of the whole community for farming, for harvesting, and so on. So you can see that in different regions. So Sudan is a place where which is dominant with have been dominant with cattle herding and cattle raising, and there have been a lot of these kind of pride related issues there. Even in India, if you talk about this thing about pride comes more in areas like Rajasthan and the drier regions, whereas in other places where like Kerala or some other place, you don't see these kind of issues much. Another cool fact is about milk and lactose intolerance. So earlier I didn't understand why do people get lactose intolerant or why. So we have been drinking milk since the childhood, and what happens? Why are they developing such strange um, intolerance towards lactose? So it is scientifically proven that our enzymes for digesting milk stop stop functioning after a certain age. But what has happened is we have domesticated animals, and those communities which domesticated animals were able to survive. Their gene was able to survive as compared to people who were lactose intolerant. So so again, the selection of the genes. So people in they people who had dairy products were able to live a longer life as compared to people who didn't. In Americas, there were no cows, and in northern Europe or Switzerland, you will see they had a lot of cattle, even in Iran and places like that. If you talk about ancient civilizations like Mesopotamia or Egypt and so on, all these languages have been decoded, but the script of Indus Valley is still not decoded. Isn't it interesting? I'm looking forward to what those people had to say or what they had written. And you know what happened? All these civilization got wiped out in a particular period of time. I'll link the video to YouTube, which shows a chart of the whole human race. So there was a long period of drought. So these whole cities or the whole these civilizations started crumpling down. There was loss of population, and they started scattering around, looking for new source of water, new source of food. Hence, they traveled to more regions. So, with the agriculture revolution, people started settling down. But you know what was the bigger output of agriculture revolution? It was religion and systems like that. So, people, the myths evolved to keep the society together, and the whole system evolved with that. You know, empires always used religion to expand and to rule over people. So if I talk about India, I got this thought from Echoes of India, the podcast you should also hear. So the different rulers at different regions and times adopted or they supported different lords like Shivas or Vishnu, or some preferred Buddhism. It was to show how rightfully they are the king and how to impose their position on their subjects. Same goes with language. There were two languages, Sanskrit and Prakrit. So Sanskrit was more for the priest and the learned, and Prakrit was for the common folks. So there were many kings and rulers who tried to set a new rule The kings are not allowed, so somebody wrote about his whole pride thing with in Sanskrit. Some people did it in Prakrit. We talk about humans causing a lot of devastation to environment and species getting extinct. It's not a new case that has happened several times. So humans, whichever continents they have gone, they have affected the environment there, made the local animals extinct. There were a lot of huge mega animals in Australia before the humans had gone there, Homo sapiens had gone in. So these big animals are ignorant of the small creatures. What will a small human do to me? But these humans got together and killed down the larger animal in a deep, and these larger animal didn't produce a lot of children so rapidly, maybe once in a year or once in 2 years. So their population started declining, and humans have eradicated huge diversity of nature even earlier. So cognitive revolution was a big aspect in the evolution of civilization or culture. So ability to translate large quantities of information about world and surrounding Homo sapiens. This had a wider consequence like planning and carrying out complex actions such as avoiding lions and hunting bisons. The ability to transmit language, large quantities of information from sapiens' social relationships. Large and cohesive groups numbering up to 150 individuals were formed because of this. From small tribes to from of a family to the group started growing and it became a village, and more the more complex the system and communication became and the cognitive evolution happened, the more larger the society and the system became. The ability to transmit information about things that do not really exist, such as tribal spirit, nations, limited liability company, and human rights. Such things are imaginary, but humans are able to explain that and form concepts. And there are so many things which happen without directly communicating or indicating with somebody because of these beliefs and systems. So cooperation between very large number of strangers, somebody we are listening and talking to each other through this network, and we are able to explain concepts of large magnitude and carry out businesses, functions, livelihood through this. So that's an interesting part of the evolution. Rapid innovation in social behavior came with this. So what was the success definition of success earlier? So in Roman times or earlier periods, it was maybe pride of winning wars. Now it is like selling NFTs or getting a job or having many other material things. Somebody thinking about fighting and occupying and conquering, those thoughts have been subsided. So having a big hunt might have been a bigger deal in past. Now, likes and followers on social media are a big thing. There is an interesting image of Louis the 14th as compared to Barack Obama, and how fashion has changed over time. So in the 18th century, this official portrait of King Louis the 14th of France, what you see here is a long wig. He's wearing a stocking, he's wearing a high heeled shoes, and he's standing in a dance posture along with a huge sword. In contemporary Europe, all these aspects except the sword would be considered as feminine or effeminacy, mark of effeminacy. But in times of Louis of the Europe, the propaganda of manhood and virility was in this kind of costume. As compared to what we wear now, the suits and the black and white dress and blazers, it's very bland. So what happened to the wig and the heels and the swords? The dominant men, if you see, the dominant men never really looked so dull as compared to the history. Look at the colorful and the flamboyant history such as American Indians. Wore all of them represented themselves with a lot of color, and you can see in the images. So the in American Indian chiefs with their headdress, the Hindu Maharajas out in the silk and diamond. Even in the animal kingdom, if you see, the males are the one which are more colorful and accessorized as than female. Think of the peacock's tail. If you talk about money, there's this book, amazing book called Ascent of Money, which you must read. There's one incident from that which I would like to share with you. So there was this person called John Law. He created the first joint stock company and printing out shares. So he was a criminal who ran away from UK and came to Netherlands and then came to, and he was a gambler there. And he first came across the joint stock companies in the Netherlands, the Dutch East India Company, and so on and so forth, were happening there, and people were investing. So he came up with some new ideas, and to implement that, he wanted a proper kingdom to implement. So he went to France, and over there, he started raising fund. He became the economical head of the country. So he had control of all the three major things: the minting of money, printing of the shares of a company, and the economy. So this company of his was promising land in Louisiana in US and printing out shares, so people are buying it. And he said, okay, this shares will be refundable and you will get the amount of gold back as you have deposited. So to increase the value of shares, he is the first creator of a financial bubble. So the value and the promise, as the people starting finding value in this, they started speculating. So they started buying in. So he started printing more currency for people to buy the stock, printing more shares for people to share. So this kept on growing up until a point where people in Louisiana actually started dying and they started coming back, and the whole promise seemed to be false. So the whole economy went into collapse. Uh, that's an interesting. You can read, check up more about him. Concept of marriage has also changed a lot in these years. So before, for money or for empire, or women didn't have right to choose whom they like to marry with. They were usually, the marriage was a social event where the family ties became stronger for political or business regions, and that's how things were. And later on, in the past 50 years or 100 years, the women were part of a family and they were just considered to be involved in the domestic items, washing, cooking, growing children. But how things have changed now. Women are almost into all things what men do. And this couldn't have been imagined even 20, 25, 50 years back. Forget about hundreds of years and before that time. Now, talking about God, God is usually considered as the gap filler. So, God is a gap filler. Whatever science cannot prove, people have found a way to put God's name or find reasoning with God in it. This first time I heard it from the person called Neil deGrasse Tyson. He has got an amazing podcast called Star Talks. So, before gods would live above the sky, and as people didn't know what happened above in the sky, they said God lives above the sky and it point upwards. And now, as we have been to the moon and beyond, our satellites have been across the solar system. Now God lies where before the Big Bang. What happened before Big Bang? So there was God. So there are two type of gods. One is the mysterious God, which we don't know about, or we are still discovering, or the things which we don't know about. But there is another God which are in the scriptures where people definitely know what that God likes or doesn't like, or whom to marry or how to marry, or what things are to be done in the morning, evening, or on Sundays, and so on and so forth, to precise details. So people usually switch between these. First, they start with that and they start giving reasons, and then they suddenly switch to the other. So it's an interesting aspect of society, and there are still, of course, people are entitled to their own beliefs, but I'm just fascinated by the diversity in the whole beliefs and the myths. My first tweet was God is just a source of confidence. I had done it back in 2010 or 11. Talking about God and interpreting God, these books, the religious books like Bible or Quran, were not made by a single person. They have been a compilation of knowledge of throughout and local stories in that region compiled together. Different, you'll find a lot of similarities between the Torah of Jewish people, the book they follow is the Old Testament. The New Testament or the newer version of Bible is very similar to Quran and the stories are very similar. So Muhammad had traveled to Israel and there to get to know about these people, and he has a very nice story as well. You should check it out. He was born in a merchant family. So point which I'm trying to make is how things evolve and how things change. In Mecca, in there was a Kaaba, and there were idols inside that of different tribal communities there, and they would still worship that place in that time. I don't know what happened or what he did or why he did whatever he did. I'm sure it must be a great cause. But he demolished those idols and established that God is a single person, God is just one, and He's Allah, and so on and so forth. So, do you think how does interpretation has come in, or do you see any parallels between that what he did and the Mughals and Babur and these people coming into India and destroying temples? I have myself seen temples in Khajuraho where the limbs, the face, and hands and the legs and the equipments have been broken down in temples, and that the temples have become like a khandar, which call in Hindi. So even Babur had quoted that he's doing whatever he's doing for religious merits. There is another. I was very curious about this and what is the ideology. So I found Tariq Fateh's videos and conversation interesting. I'm not following any one person. I'm just saying I'm always referring to new medias. I'm just being cautious because this is a sensitive topic when it comes to religion. But I also have my right to explain my things or express my opinion. So I had actually done an NFT on this. Islamophobic or are there extremes in all religions? There are people who get brainwashed, and they're usually people from the back lower economic strata, or they brought into the religion or converted religion by giving food or money on some aspects. So these are the most vulnerable people to the extreme ideology. People can use them and change their ideology to make them do whatever they want to do, get accomplished. So the whole terrorist, which we call, and for them it is not terror. For them, it is they're doing righteous things for God. They'll go in heaven and so on and so forth. So these thoughts evolve. I think there are extremes in all religions, but the whole of the community shouldn't be hated for this. There are good folks in all places and in atheist as well and all other places. So just think a little who can understand and maybe try to share with people, try to make them aware of facts around these things. So that's it, guys. And this was going to be a session of the count your words, but I have to do it anyways because I've put a resolution. No matter anyone comes or not, I had to do a monologue. I said I'll do a monologue even if it takes that because I need to publish a podcast regularly every week. And just like as we discussed in the previous episodes about habit, even if it is of 5-10 minutes or 15 minutes, I have decided to do this every week. And let's see how it evolves. Thank you very much for listening in. And I'm sure with these podcasts, you will see the growth of my thoughts throughout the years, in throughout decades, and you can trail back incidents and thoughts to whatever I accomplish or whatever I'm known, whatever I do in future to today. So thank you very much for tuning in. This is the first recorded episode on Twitter. I mean, the record option I just see right now on the Twitter. Before I wouldn't see that, and I'm happily amused that this space hasn't got rugged or closed down. I will share this and make a podcast of this clipping with some audios which I've got from the past sessions.
The voices you'll be hearing in the upcoming clip are of Phil, Laura, and Nikhil.
Yes, I am going to share with you guys a book that I read. It's called The Map of Knowledge. I saw this book and I was like, what is this? So it talks about 1,000 years, 1,000-year history of how classical ideas were lost and found. And it's always interesting to see how things evolved over the years, and going way back in the past. And, sometimes you can say, okay, it's based on someone's opinion. I get it. But in between the lines, there's always some, truth. Just like behind every rumor, there's truth. There's somewhere in there. There's some actual facts, but people usually sugarcoat stuff. But they're talking about the foundation of knowledge. Obviously, started with the Greeks, who had written scrolls and stored them in libraries, across the Mediterranean and beyond. And during those periods, the vast Roman Empire got destroyed. I mean, and including some of their libraries and precious texts. In the books, they talk about, people burying some of the books, because they didn't want them to get stolen or seized. Some people put them underground. They came back and they found the books were destroyed because of weathering. They were not protected. So that knowledge ended. And then as we go past to the future years, Christianity started becoming a big, kind of had a big following. And with Christianity, they rejected some of the knowledge that was written by the Greek and the classical knowledge. Some of them were destroyed. Some people tried to save them. And how those things got saved is by individuals from different, homes who stored them safely, hid them from the public for a really long time, and if you look at the world where, that was the period of the Dark Ages, so to speak, and manuscripts were just passed hand to hand, and that's pretty much how they survived. And then we had, as time went by, you had people whose mission was just to find some of these books and put them in a library, and of course, and if we jump to the 18th century, the Arabs who discovered the Greek learning, they started the Greek learning, started using this in their civilization. Then, but at that time, the Arabs also started getting into science and physics, and and discovered so many things that, of course, they don't get so much credit for, but they made a lot of impact at that time, the Arabs. And then, of course, then translation became also an issue. As we moved to the earlier centuries, translation was an issue, and then we started they went into to the period of printing, and you can see from history why the English language was prevalent, because the printing of the words was much easier than the Arabic writing. And when the printing became a thing of just developing a lot of repeated documents where they can share with more people, I think I was talking about in the Arab side, it was very difficult. They didn't adapt to the printing experience, so the knowledge almost slowed down at that part, and dramatically affected the environment. But on the West, you could see the printing became this big thing, and exchange of knowledge became part of and parcel of schools and all those institutions, and you can actually get books and share them. But of course, when you go to that was in the 15th century, that's the Renaissance period. And then, of course, and definitely when people started learning and they discovered paper, then knowledge was able to be maintained. There were collectors, like just NFT collectors, who actually took in some of those books and stored them. Some created libraries. You had to pay to get in to read those books. So special people of high class in stature were the only ones who were allowed to have access to those high level knowledge book, philosophy and physics and whatever, astronomy. And but as we move on to the future, which is today, which is now the information age, now knowledge is available in abundance. We now walk. Your cell phone is pretty much the planet. You walk with the planet in your pocket at the palm of your hands. So the origin was history was formed, destroyed, and then restored by a few people who loved and cherished them and collected them, and also the distribution of knowledge through printing and newspapers and all that stuff. And now, as we move today, is technology, which is abundance of free information. So the book is called The Map of Knowledge, and I'm going to pin it up for everybody to take a look at. And take a look and let me know what you guys think. If you have any questions, thank you so very much.
Hey, Joe, I think, and sorry if I'm cutting you off there, Tanmay. I think what you speak to is super relevant. And one quote that comes to my mind immediately as you're speaking about the book is, history was written by the winners, right? And
yes,
beyond that is, I have some background, some cultural background related to Hawaii. And I don't know how experienced everyone here on the call is with Hawaii. I think most people associate Hawaii with being a vacation destination, right? And I'm sure right now, wherever we are in the world, I'm sure we all wish we were in Hawaii. But one thing that a lot of people don't know is that Hawaii was illegally annexed. What that means is that they were overthrown by the United States government illegally in the late 1800s, I believe, and that I could be corrected there. But interesting enough, to speak to your point, Joe, one of the first ways, or one of the first things they did to accomplish this, and it was pretty swift, like this overthrow, was accomplished in no more than about 8 to 10 years, right? So one of the initial things they did to kind of accomplish this goal was they burned and eliminated the Hawaiians' written word. Right. And it speaks to how important it is that history is, transferred over and passed down from generation to generation through the written word. And if you study Hawaiian history, what you'll find is that this illegal annexation is used in a bunch of use cases and studies to prove that written word, right, the elimination of written word is the easiest way to eliminate a language. And so when you look at the Hawaiian population today in the world, what you'll find is not only just a bunch of mixed races amongst their population, but you'll find that there's a very minuscule amount of people who speak the native language. And a lot of that is to blame for, America's ability to eliminate their written word very early on in the late 1800s. So what you're speaking to is very real, and it's super significant. And it's a very efficient way to kind of maneuver through history. So really interested in the book. Really, really would appreciate it if you pinned it up there. Definitely want to look into it. But really funny and small world, right? I bring up a book that you currently just finished, and then you bring up a book that has a lot to do with my cultural background. Just want to thank Tanmay and Laura again for hosting this really unique space.
Yeah, sorry. Tanmay, your hands was up, so I'll speak out to you. Thanks.
Yeah, Prodigy, you're so kind. You've been participating and being here and sharing your insights on all the topics. So thank you very much. We'd love to have you, just like Phil and Nikhil, in all our future discussions and rooms. So I will just refresh the room. Today we are talking about habits, but it was wonderful to hear the evolution of knowledge and history. So I think, Laura, next week we should do a room on evolution and history, and I will add this segment in that episode. And no, we can discuss Noah Harari's books, and there are so many books to discuss. So thank you, Phil, for that.
Could I
So
Bringing
just
back,
many, literally so many.
I know we
bring,
have to listen to other speakers 100%, but man, you Pori G. How do you pronounce your name, by the way?
It's poetry. So just think porridge
Poetry.
and poetry put together.
Yeah.
It's
Nice.
sorry about that.
No, that's okay. That's okay. I just wanted a poetry. Awesome, man. So it's amazing you said that. So there's another last one. I'll be done. There's another book called The Age of Wonder. Have you seen that? Have you heard of that book? The Age of Wonder. I'll pin it up. I'm just trying to figure out how to pin stuff. The Age of Wonder talks about Hawaii. Hawaii was actually a destination during that period where people used to go, and they said that they saw the most beautiful women in the world, and people from all over Europe used to like, save money just to go and be there and see these women. Of course, you know what happens when these guys get there, and that's why it's so mixed. It's just a whole host of different type of I'd say a mixture of cultures, because I think at that time, there was a period of just people used to write stories to each other that there's this land of most beautiful people in the planet, or this land of gold, which is maybe in Africa or something, where there's treasures and all that. And those things were at that time were just so part of the buzzword, just like metaverse and NFT right now. Everybody's running towards something, uh, and so I completely I really appreciate you saying that, because it just put things in perspective of what's really going on there in Hawaii. So back at you. Thank you.
No, thank you so much for the constructive feedback, brother. And you bring up a great point, right? Like early on in history, it was like a really mystified location, and then, as politics began to grow, Hawaii became nothing more than just like a political territory for the, to be the hub for the Pacific, right? So you bring up a great point, and I look forward to connecting with you, brother, as we move forward. And to Tanmay's point, I look forward to being a part of this space just in our short time together. This is a really unique, awesome space, and can't thank everyone in this space enough.
Phil, I'm actually curious about this. And Tanmay, I'm sorry, we're drifting away from the habit books, but I have to ask this to Phil. Was there anything about Asian history, about scripts and their texts? Because me, as obviously I'm from Latvia, from Europe, we always learn European history, and I think everybody learns about European history, and obviously America learns about American history, and then there is so much more. Like in my school, in school time during education, I didn't get to learn much. I get to learn something, a little bit touch about Africa, South America, not really much about Australia, something about Asia, but we miss out on so much richness, cultural richness, richness in the world. And I was just curious if this book spoke also about other, like Asia. I know Chinese culture is massive, and they have medicine and just so much of everything. So that's my curiosity and question.
Yeah, that's interesting. I think they mainly focus on the like like prodigy. Yeah, like Prodigy said, the winners are the ones who get to write this story, and they can just write whatever they want. They can write them in a romantic way that seems like very heroic, and maybe add elements to convince you that it was very, like, they had all the might and knowledge and strategy and everything. But the book goes all the way from the Greek periods, and I think touches that scientific knowledge. That's what we're using today. The kind of systems that we're applying to today. So I think they touched not so much on the Asian experience. They did touch on part of Asia, but not that much. Mostly focusing on, on the Greek, and also the introduction of Christianity, and then of course the printing press, which accelerated that form of knowledge to what we live in today, right now. So, but yes, you're right. This is the thing about cultures. There's a lot of information in different cultures that we don't even know, or we're just not paying attention to. But they could have tapped into a different way of thinking that is probably even the best way of living. We've just been taught not to really pay attention to that experience. But now I think we're almost getting into the period where people now are more curious. Now information is available. No one wants repetitive stuff. People want authentic stories and experiences. And maybe for the first time, we can now get into a much deeper knowledge of, a higher form of learning than just what we've been learning from day one. But, tapping into maybe a human experience, maybe our forefathers. They figured something out that we need to kind of live with. So I hope that helped a little bit.
I mean, thank you. I also see that the more access to information we have, and obviously internet has a big part of it, we have chance to learn so much. And I want to emphasize that if we don't know about certain cultures, it doesn't mean that they didn't win. Because obviously China is on its own, its own dragon, its own winner. And I think it's Gongzhou means the center. In Chinese, it means the center of the world. And they were in their own world, obviously, because it's massive. And that's why they are good on their own. They don't need us, but at the same time, it coexisted. And as we learn so much about them, like their medicine is like so freaking fantastic. It can heal literally everything, and we don't know so much. And they have their own myth and literature, and just so rich. And I mean, China is a big dragon, but there are so many other cultures, for example, also Hawaii culture, and it's just when we come together, we can learn from each other, and we get so much more richer by this knowledge, by experience, by culture, by customs, Yeah, that's it. And I know Tanmay was rugged, so I'm just trying to get him back.
Yeah, I think Laura, you're absolutely right. And just to add, as an Asian myself, and Asia, for just to bring the focus around the fact that it's bigger than Southeast Asia, India, Middle East, all of it would be part of Asia as a geographical continent. We tend to definitely see that bias that you mentioned around publications focusing on their part of the world, and given the fact that the West is still pretty much the biggest powerhouse, that still drives a lot of that agenda, in the sense of not having enough exposure to cultures outside of Europe and the West in general, especially in the English speaking / European language speaking community. But there's definitely a lot of material out there, and as we just discussed, we could probably think of an entire session around I wouldn't want to call it hidden histories, but more around um, histories that people, especially in the larger sort of global audience, might not have heard of.
Thank you very much. See you on Wednesday. Wednesday is a session with famous Russian model. She's a health coach as well. So do join in for that.
We have got some amazing NFTs for you. I have a collection of 3D animated, abstract, and figurative NFTs. If you want to have an immersive experience of my artworks, I would insist you to visit my virtual gallery. Laura's collection is a fusion of fashion and art NFTs inspired from our own fashion shows and her unique art style. If you want to know how to buy your NFT or if you want to know how to create one, do get in touch. All links have been mentioned in description. Cheers!